Parshas Gel from the Dvar Malchus. It's Parshas Shkolim, so therefore it begins with the opening of our Parsha. It's Mivarch Machoidish Ve'erverish Choidish Adar Sheni Tavshil Lamed Gim. Sisas Reish B'nai Yisrael today when you will count the heads of the B'nai Yisrael to their numbers, this is what they shall give. All of those who pass through the count, Machzis shekel, they should give a half a shekel. They will give a half a shekel to be able to count. Sayim, and it concludes, to atone for your salt. Tzarech lahav, and the Rebbe asked the question we need to understand. Why over here, when he's using the word for counting, does he use the word tisa? And the simple meaning of tisa means raising up, like we a lot of times have the idea of nesias kapayim. You're raising up your hands. The kohenim tuchning is called nesias kapayim, for example. So, if you want to use word that you're using anyway, kudim, lifkudehem, so you could have used ki tifkedu as Rosh Bnei Yisrael. It's the same root word. Instead, he chooses a different root word that also has another indication than counting. It has an indication of raising up. Like to brought down Moshe Rabbeinu told Hashem, the Oinish master of the universe, met Torah Karen Yisrael, with what will be raised up the principle of the Yidden. In other words, how will the Yidden be raised up? That will be how, when you will perform kisisa, literally by counting and taking from them the machzah shekel, by them collecting the machzah shekel, through that you will raise them up. Shall pi hazeh pirush the kisisa Rosh Bnei Yisrael gisarim as Rosh Bnei Yisrael. So, according to this explanation of the Gemara, what the Gemara is trying to say, so then it fits in very nicely. That Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, yes, you will raise up the Bnei Yisrael. He sees us right Bnei Yisrael by collecting from them the machzah shekel. According to this explanation, the words kisisas right Bnei Yisrael means you will raise up the heads of the Bnei Yisrael. The Rebbe asked the Lechura, Mashayich in Haramas Bnei Yisrael, Lepirish Apashut, Ein Mikra Yotzim De Pshutoy, what's the connection between raising up the Bnei Yisrael to the simple meaning, which we know a pasuk never leaves its simple pshat. As much as we have different types of drash and so on, simple pshat is not thrown out the window. He sees us right Bnei Yisrael, who that you, when you will count Bnei Yisrael to their numbers, I mean, it's the idea of numbers. So what's the connection between counting the Bnei Yisrael and the idea of raising their heads? Again, we're before the idea of machzah shekel. We're not talking about tzedakah. We're talking about counting. So the word kisisa contains two meanings. It has the simple meaning that the pasuk is trying to communicate. In the Pshutim Shal Mikra, you will count, and then kisisa, like the Gemara says, you will raise up. And here's what the Rebbe wants to know, right here, in the words kisisa, before we get into how they're counting by giving a machzah shekel. How does counting cause the raising up of Keren Yisrael? That's question number 1, line 13. Else when you understand. What it says when you count, this is what they will give, a half a shekel. The idea of the count and the raising up happens through this, that they will give the lechura maya shayches the aromas bnei Yisrael the nesinas machzah shekel. Seemingly, what's the connection of the raising up of bnei Yisrael to the giving of a half a shekel? So here we're talking already more like a secondary activity. Earlier he was asking what's the connection between kisisa, raising them up, and counting. Now he wants to know the connection between raising up the Bnei Yisrael to the giving of the half a shekel. Also, we need to understand what it says in the Medrash and the Shalmi the Zoyar. Niskashu Moshe be'inyan machsa shekel. Moshe Rabbeinu had difficulty in uh, in the midst of a half a shekel, and because of that, Hashem showed him the Haroah Baruch He showed him a fiery coin of a matzah shekel and said, that's why it says in the pasuk, this is what they will give, because he was trying to communicate that Hashem showed him that this was a difficult thing, or from the pasuk Zayit, Hashem had to point it. Zeh means pointing out, just like it says about the Kiddush HaChodesh. It says Kazer Reu Kaddish Chodesh Hazelochem, that look, this is what you have to make the Kiddush HaLevana, or how you mechadish Levana. And the same thing by the Menorah was difficult. So again, the Rebbe wants to know the L'churim Ma Shayich Zelin and Aminian. What's the connection between this difficulty and this fiery coin? What's this whole idea that he had difficulty with it and so on? What's that to do with the concept of counting? How does this all fit into the parsha about counting? There's nothing by chance. Since he counted him by a coin, so therefore now he had problems with the coin, so Hashem had to show. Obviously, it also has to do with the counting the fiery coin, and also has to do with the counting that there was a difficulty that Moshe Rabbeinu had. So what is this all about? Another question is, line 18, also we need to understand. This is what they shall give, a half a shekel. Now the Torah is not happy with that. It says, let me explain some more. In case you don't know what a half a shekel is, and he adds to explain. First of all, let's tell you what a shekel is. Esrim geira a shekel. A shekel is made up of 20 geir. So why even go into that? The l'chura seemingly kivim shetzarich losses rak matzah shekel. Since one has to give only a half a shekel, lam etzarich lefarish kamu shekel shalom. Why even go into it? How much a whole shekel is? If the whole reason he goes into explaining how much a whole shekel is, that it's 20 geir, to be able to explain, well, since a whole is 20, so then a half is 10. So let him just cut to the point. Forget about calling it a machzah shekel and talking about, well, you need to have a whole shekel is 20 and this is a half. Let him just go straight to the point. He should have said, instead of Zayitnu, this is what they should give. They should give a half a shekel. Let him give 10 geira. Why does he say this is what they shall give, a half a shekel? His base. The explanation of this matter is the Hine Moshe Moshe Rabbeinu found it difficult. But it's explained in the commentary on the Zohar. But the Zohar is also one of them that we said before, brings the issue about Moshe Rabbeinu's difficulty. So the Ramaz's commentary on the Zohar says, move of a comment drushim, like it's brought down in many Rambonim. What was the difficulty? Shazel, Lefish Yisrael, Shoshem, Chinas Shalom, Ma'ilom Me'amispar V'acher. Was the question is, first of all, I understand there could be problems with, let's say, to be mechadish the moon. When is it exactly considered that it appears? Obviously, the making a menorah from one solid piece of gold that you cannot screw in the pieces or weld the pieces together can also be something very difficult. And also to imagine and picture all the intricate designs in the menorah. But what was so difficult about the half a shekel? So here's the difficulty. Because the Eden, their roof, is from a level that's higher than number and calculation. How will they be raised or associated with the level of a number, level of a count. It's like saying Hashem is beyond number, beyond count. Therefore, it's not possible to count and to limit what Hashem is and so on. The same thing Yidden source is also from a place that's beyond number and count. And this was a difficulty of Moshe Rabbeinu had. How can you count the Bnei Yisrael? The Yidden are beyond number. But the Rebbe adds to what the Ramaz says, line 7, we can add to the wonder that the Ramaz explains about the problem over here. Because the command, who was told to do the counting? When you will count. Who is the you? The you is referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. You, Moshe Rabbeinu, when you will count. Moshe Yimnas Yisrael. Moshe is the one that will count the Yidden. But Yisrael, Kefisha Heimetzad Moshe. The Yidden, the way they are from Moshe Rabbeinu's perspective, I know this means Kefisha Moshe Kailos, and the way Moshe Rabbeinu includes them and contains them. The Kivan Shan Nasi Wakil, since like Rashi also brings down that the Nasi is all. Arian Nasi Kailos Kulam, so the Nasi includes all of them. So the way Moshe Rabbeinu's perspective is on Klal Yisrael, and Moshe Rabbeinu, the way he contains the Bnei Yisrael, and Lamaylam did the they're beyond measure and boundary, and therefore the question is, how can you count that? So Gam Hapirish the Chisisim, that's also the explanation that when you will count from the expression of raising up the feature minion, why did Moshe, since who is doing the counting? It's Moshe Rabbeinu doing the counting. Ukefisha Yisrael and Mitzad Chinas Moshe, the way the Yidden are perspective of Moshe, they are beyond measure and division. Therefore, he affects in them an elevation. But at the very same time, the idea of numbers then don't apply. How is it possible if Moshe can count? So what was Hashem's response? Line 17. On this, Hashem responded, this they will give. Zeh. The emphasis on the word zeh. What is Moshe Rabbeinu going to count? What level of the Yidden is it possible to count? That's only the revealed part of the Yidden, the part of the Yidden that's called Zeh. What's known there are two levels. The root and the source of the neshama, the way it's above. On the second part of the neshama, bechinas on neshama, the part of the neshama, the level of the neshama, it's enclosed with the body. This is the revealed part of the neshama that's called the zeh. You could point to it, zeh. This is it because it's something revealed. It's open. It's visible. Masim Gam Pirish Rabbeinu Azokin Bin Yitnu. This also fits it with the explanation of the Alter Rebbe on the pasuk Yitnu Gomer Machs HaShekel. Machs is HaShekel She Yisrael Noisnim, the half a shekel that he didn't give. Inyan Koiches Hagiluyim Shal Neshama. The half a shekel represents the revealed soul powers. That's why we emphasize the half a shekel, because it's not over here about Eser Geda. We're trying to emphasize that there's a half of something that the Yidden are giving. What are they giving? They're giving their revealed soul power. By days through the Yidden giving to Hashem, or giving this half of their own neshama. The revealed soul powers, the other half of the shekel, the other half of their soul powers comes down that through that becomes awakened and drawn down the root of the neshama. So in Kisisas Rosh Bnei Yisrael, that's the idea when you will both count and raise it up. What's raising up over here? By giving the half a shekel, by giving the koiches hagiluyim, they're raising it up to the level of the head. Kisisa Es roish over here not means you're raising the head, but you're raising it to the head, to the level that neshama shalom mailam didav through that's beyond any type of measure and division. And how does one able to do so? How does one do that raising up? How does one give that half a shekel, that half a neshama, the koich segiluyim, aidei inin kabbalah soil, through the idea of the acceptance of the yoke of heaven? Any questions before we go on? Okay, on page Zion, Ois Gimel, top of the page. Now, this mimer was not said on Parsh Kisisa. This mimer was a mimer from Shabbos Parshas Vayakov. It was only Parshas Shkolim, so they read Kisisa. So he's going to connect it with actually next week's Parsha, with Parshas Vayakov. Yesh Lakasher, the Rebbe says we can connect this in Mashkasa, Parshas Shavuot, what it's written in the Parshas Shavuot. Vayakov, Moshe is called Das Bnei Yisrael. And Moshe gathered the whole entire congregation of the Bnei Yisrael. And this was before the erecting of the Mishkan, and this was on the day after Yom Kippur, as we'll mention. So he gathered them all together and he instructed them about what was talking about in Parshas Truma Tetzava, which is about Hashem's command to Moshe Rabbeinu. In Vayakil, he gave it over to the Yidden, he gathered them together. By prefacing the Hine Bnei Yisrael, Mitzad Atzma Minimum Mailam Mischalpas, the Yidden on their own are beyond division. Because you are children to Havai your God. Therefore, Kishem Shavai Mitzadat, you act as Pshuta. Well, the Mailam Mischalpas, just like Shem Yudkin Vavkel itself, is a pure oneness and unity, and beyond any type of division. So to the Jewish people on their own. And the Mailam Mischalpas are beyond division. After they descended down below, specifically after through the sin of the Egel. Like I said, this was on the morrow of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur was the forgiveness for the Chet Egel, for the sin of the golden calf. So because of the sin of the golden calf, Nasa pizud on its soitzes. So then became a further and an ultimate scattering of sparks. To such a degree, if the ones that are scattered amongst you will be at the ends of the heavens, meaning far, far away. This is a result of Avedus and so on, starting from the greatest Aveda from Chet Egel. So what do we have to do? We have disrupted that unity. We have disrupted that oneness. So now we have to bring it back together. We have to collect it again. Afterwards, has to be the ascent from below to above. If you are scattered, will be in the ends of the heavens. So from there, Hashem, your God, will collect you, and from there, He will take you. So in a similar vein, we have this demonstrated in Vayakel. After there was the sin of the Egel, that's why it says Moshe Rabbeinu gathered. And when did he gather? The Yidden on the morrow of Yom Kippur. Shekvar Hois Aslich Al Chet Egel was already the forgiveness for the sin of the Egel. In a way that I have forgiven you, like you have stated. In other words, Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, I have forgiven, like your request was. The fact that Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, I have forgiven, like your words, in what way would Moshe Rabbeinu's words have been to the idea of forgiveness in a complete manner, in a total manner, in a Ratzon and Lev Shalom, totally wholehearted. So once the forgiveness was complete in a total manner, Zai Paul Moshe in the Vayakil. So then Moshe Rabbeinu affected the idea of we shall gather instead of in place of the scattering and the vision. He affected Paul Vayakil. She also called they should become a congregation. Lamailam is chalkus beyond the vision because they are one entity. They are an entity of a congregation. In addition to the idea of the collecting and gathering from below to above, there's also the idea of the gathering also the drawing down from above to below. Moshe Rabbeinu's gathering is he's gathering down here, but there's also a gathering that takes place from above. What is that? He gathered them and he commanded them for the making of the Mishkan. The Mishkan is about Hashem dwelling down here. That's from above to below. That's the gathering that comes from above to below. The idea of the Mishkan is they shall make for him Migdash, and I shall rest amongst them. I will rest from above to below. He grew down below the level of the pure oneness. That's beyond the vision. So that is the gathering and the unity that comes from below and the unity that comes from above through Hashem residing in the Mishkan. Pratis Yoser, and more specifically, says in line 26, concerning the oneness and unity of Moshe's gathering itself. There's the two components of raising up from below to above and drawing down from above to below. Hine, Pasuk Vayachal Moshe Isa. Pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu gathered is brought down the Medrash, and brought down the Medrash top of page Ches. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe, Hashem told Moshe, Asei lecha kehilos gedolos. Make for yourself great gatherings. What does that mean? What does Hashem want Moshe Rabbeinu to make great gatherings? So that the following generations should learn from you. Lahakil kehilos b'chol Shabbos, to make gatherings and b'chol Shabbos for Shabbos and every Shabbos, the lichnois b'batim midrashos, and to collect and to everybody enter into the yeshivas lalamed ulahoydis liyisrael divrei Torah, to teach the Yidden words of Torah. Now, that was what Moshe Rabbeinu's Vayakil is, not the Vasli Migdash Chanti B'Soy. So it means even in Moshe Rabbeinu's Vayakil, there's the Momayla Lamata. Why? Because Torah, as he's going to explain now, is Momayla Lamata. By the Indian Torah, I'm sure from Momayla Lamata, the idea of Torah is drawing down from above to below. Moshe Koso, like it says, behold, my words are like fire. Dvar Hashem Shalom Mailam Didvag Bola. It's the words of Hashem, it's beyond measure and boundary. Kain Amar Azal, for this reason, the Chazal said, whoever is involved in the Torah study of the laws of a carbon oil, Hashem considers it as if he brought the oil. Now, so where do we see that this is beyond measure and boundary? Because the carbon oil has very specific rules and laws, where and when and how. But that all those rules go out the window when you're learning Torah. Afalpi, line 9, even though he's outside of Eretz Yisrael, you can't bring a carbon oil outside of Yisrael. Ubalayla, he's learning Torah at night, and bring a carbon oil by night. He's not a kohen, only a kohen can bring a carbon. But since he's doing it through Torah, beyond measure and boundary, is chalpos, and beyond division. So therefore, it's something that you could have even in the Torah. You could, because Torah is beyond boundary, you have this type of unity and beyond division. But the Rebbe says you can't go into the unity of Torah without having a first introduction. Amram, the Torah, so that be able to be and this unity in Torah. And of Torah, the first has to be the ascent of davening. First, we have to daven, then learn Torah. First, you have to go onto the ladder that's standing on the ground, and its head reaches the heavens. How are you going to draw down the Torah from the heavens if you're still on the ground? You need to climb the ladder of davening. You do a being in philosophy, like it's known concerning that Abba Ben Yamin said that I always made sure that my davening is next to my bed, meaning immediately when I get up, I go right away to davening. I do not interrupt with Torah learning. I need to first have the davening as a preface before I can reach the level of Torah that I need to reach. Because I said before, we're going to have Dam Shacham or Milo Mata to be able to join and have the levels beyond the Skalkas. First, I have to have the davening to reach that level, to attain that higher level to draw it down. That's what he says that has to do with Vayakel, line 15. These are the two ideas. In Vayakel, Vayakel, first, there has to be the collecting and the gathering of the sparks that takes place from below to above. Davening is also about collecting and gathering the sparks. Through davening, all the sparks that I dealt with in the entire day prior become elevated through davening. And afterwards, there's the gathering and collecting from above to below that happens Now the Rebbe continues, top of page test, line 3. Moshe is called Das B'nai Yisrael, where it says that Moshe gathered the whole Adas B'nai Yisrael. Why does it say Adas B'nai Yisrael? What's the significance of using the word Ada? Vayakel Moshe is called B'nai Yisrael. Why adding the word Adas? Tevis Adas Yeshlam Shloisha Pirush. Concealed in the word Adas, we could derive from it 3 meanings. Das, Adas, you switch the letter Ayin and Daled, you have the word Das, knowledge. Edus, Adas is spelled the same thing like Edus, testimony, witness. The Eda, and a congregation. Inyan Hadas, the idea of Das, like it says in the Pasuk, Das you should know the God of your father. And it doesn't just mean book knowledge, but also Shubal Shreinei Skashis, which is the expression of being found, that he's connected. Just like in the Pasuk Vadam Yadas Kava, it's talking about a binding and a connection between the two. Until they were like one flesh. And how does that take place? How does a Yid have that total connection with Hashem through Das? That means that he inserts his thoughts strongly in the greatness of the Ein Sof. Since in the level of Das, it's possible to be an idea of a descent because it's part of the soul powers of the body. Since it's part of the soul powers of the body, it's that's enclosed in the body, the lower part of the soul. So therefore, it's susceptible to being scattered and descending into other things which are not in the positive realm. There has to be in it the level of gathering and collecting, that we need to gather and collect and make sure that the Das is all focused and all on the same page with the level of Kedusha.